But Buckminster is one of the few initiatives, one of the few projects that drew the life in me as something that is potentially really meaningful. Because it's new, because it's being invented as we speak, right? Because we are inventing it in the process of having this conversation together. And so we won't start from scratch because of our own experiences, but there are certain things that we can deliberately do differently than the schools and universities that we went to. In my soul, I had one teacher in particular who's still a good friend now, just retired. And he really opened up these spaces in me and this sense of metaphor as being key for our understanding of ourselves and understanding of the world. And I loved metaphysical poetry. He was an expert on Moby Dick, and I fell in love with Moby Dick. That very professor offered me a job at a new private college that was being opened in town in an applied linguistics program. So I taught there before I even had a master's degree, and discovered I really loved teaching. And when I worked there, I discovered that there were some very interesting systemic mechanisms that differentiated the public university that I had gone to from this little new startup private university where I was now teaching, where I saw the same people taught at both. And it seemed like they were entirely different people depending on the context that they were in. And this really fascinated me. And it also fascinated me that this new private college was experimenting with new ways of teaching, with new ways of organizing, that I thought, man, if I had only had an experience with something like this when I was in college, could we learn from good practices and sort of spread that? I was turned into a brain that had a body to carry it around. And it was the experience of motherhood that really transformed that. And it wasn't really until my second son, who came along very soon after the first, that it dawned on me that there's no going back, that there's just no going back to how I was before. I was a different person now. And, and what's more, I really liked that person. It was a more playful person. It was a more present person. There's nothing like small children to really draw you into the moment. And that's another lesson that I owe them, is they are in the present. They don't think about the past. They don't worry about the future all too much, unless, a trip to grandma is in the works. They are so much in the present and engaged with the present. And that's something I lost through the years of getting educated and being the straight A student. I was always this really good head of the class type of student who got good grades and got praised by teachers and found my identity in learning and in academics. And it's just this wonderful experience of being a guide to the world. You ask what do you do with a little child? It's kind of a frightful but exhilarating opportunity to be the guide who introduces him to the world, who says, look, and then very often that's all it takes, is to say look, and they figure out the rest for themselves. There's a really nice metaphor used by Aldous Huxley, who says that for an astronomer, when you look into the sky with just your eyes, there's a lot that you can see there. And there's a lot you can say about the sky just based on looking at it with your bare eyes only. But it's a whole different game if you have the telescope. And the telescope of the ultimate nature of reality is love.